Well, with me now is Ross Frenett, Project Manager at the Against Violent Extremism Network, a global network of former extremists and survivors of extremism who now speak out against terrorism. These are watered-down measures from what was proposed in the late summer, September, aren't they? Do you think they are still too radical?
No, I don't think they are, but I think they only make up a part of the puzzle. So there are certain emphases here which are slightly worrying. I think it's important that we provide individuals that are currently in Syria and Iraq a pathway to leave, both so we can stop them from fighting for ISIS, and also so when they come back, they can speak out against this organisation and discourage others from going.
But the point is that if they are travelling to Syria and Iraq, these aren't petty crimes they're committing. They are, involved in radical extremist war at the moment, and they need to be contained, don't they? So actually, shouldn't you be dealing extremism with extreme measures?
Absolutely. So there's part of what you say is true in that these people obviously are overseas engaging in warfare. But there is a difference between someone who travelled, let's say, to fight for a less radical group and was carrying out logistics versus someone that's carrying out beheadings. And it's important in our approach we distinguish between those two. You mentioned the need for extreme measures, and we agree, but the problem is we're seeing governments and others are focusing very much on the law enforcement side of things, but they're not taking extreme measures when it comes to fighting the battle of ideas online. What the Prime Minister mentioned in terms of takedowns and censorship is all very well, but without positive material replacing that, then you're engaged in a fruitless battle. So these kind of extreme measures need to be taken not just in the hard end but also in the soft end battle of
But
ideas.
say on the online side of things, that monitoring would raise questions about civil liberties as well. I mean, did you have any worries about that? Because presumably you'd be advocating much more monitoring of suspected militants.
To be honest with you, I think there's two elements to this. Governments need to be monitoring suspected militants, and there are potential issues there with civil liberties, but that sits to one side. The bigger concern we have is the kind of lack of material out there which is countering these messages online. And you don't actually need to do any targeting beyond what's done normally by advertising companies and others when you see ads on your Facebook post or boosted tweets. So there's no civil liberties implications here, but governments, foundations and the private sector need to start taking this battle of ideas very seriously.
But if people are looking for a sense of brotherhood, if people are looking for a sense of inclusion in some sort of jihad, some sort of holy war, any warnings or filtering of those websites which they go onto isn't going to make any difference, is it?
Partly agree with you. This is one of the reasons we disagree with censorship as the only option. We believe that you need engaging counter-narratives, not just by governments, but actually by civil society organisations which are credible. So people who've survived terrorist violence, former terrorists themselves. That kind of thing is engaging, and it's something which could capture the attention of young people which are looking for that brotherhood.
Would the threat, though, of having their statehood removed actually be the best way of preventing? Because people would think twice about that. So if they knew they went, say, to Syria or Iraq and then couldn't get back, would that actually shock them not into going?
Yeah, I think that there's an element that we do need to dissuade people from going in the first place. But if you ask people before they go, very often they say, well, I have no intention of coming back. But what we know for a fact happens is people get there and then they become disenchanted. And if what we do is we say to these people, once you're there, you can never come back, we're actually locking them in to staying in these organisations where there are now, we know, hundreds who want to come home. And we should open up a path for those people to come home, face appropriate criminal sentences if necessary, and then potentially engage in the battle of ideas online and offline to discourage others from going in the first place.
They also face the risk of being executed by the very people they went to join in the first place.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, Ross Frenett, thank you very much indeed.